Did you know that you have different kinds of memory? If you're like most people, you probably know about the big two, short-term memory and long-term memory. But there are actually more types than that, and they each play a big role in how we are able to function in our everyday life. As a caregiver, understanding that not all memory is the same can actually be really important when you are trying to care for someone that has memory loss, like in dementia. So today, I'm going to teach you about 5 different types of memories. As a speech therapist, memory is one of the key skills that I work on with my patients that have cognitive difficulties. And one of my favorite types of memory to work on with these patients is at the end of this list, so stick around. So let's start with short-term memory. Our short-term memory can hold anywhere from 5 to 9 pieces of information. But that's all it does. It holds. So it allows us to remember a name or a short list of things we need to grab at the store. So I want you to think of short-term memory like a conveyor belt. And this conveyor belt lasts for 30 seconds. So the pieces of information that you put on one end of this conveyor belt, after 30 seconds, or even a little less, depending on how well your memory is functioning, it's going to fall off. So you don't have a long time when you're working with short-term memory. Now, within the short-term memory space, you have sensory and working memory. Our sensory memory is one of the first steps in processing information that is ready to be memorized. So it basically acts like a filter through which the outside world passes through one or more of our 5 senses. Do you remember those? They're hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, and touching. So after this very brief memory is formed, the brain then decides whether to send that memory and that information over to the short-term memory or to just get rid of it altogether. Working memory is actually an updated concept of short-term memory, and I really feel like this is what most people think of when they hear short-term memory. So, unlike in short-term memory where you can only hold information, working memory allows you to actually manipulate that information. So it allows you to do things like simple math in your head if you're going to the store and you need to figure out what the sell price is of something, or add a few things together to see how much you're going to spend. Your working memory allows you to do that. It also allows you to dial a telephone number that you were just told because you're able to repeat that number to yourself a few times. It also allows you to read directions and then perform the task that it tells you to do. So for any cooks out there, following a recipe, you're using your working memory. Or if any of you shop at IKEA, right, it's being able to put together their furniture. That all involves the working memory. So you can imagine that people that have this short-term or this working memory issue, especially if they have dementia or things that impact their short-term memory, you're going to see a really big area of deficit with them. So what you're going to do instead is compensate for these losses. You're going to have them use a calendar to figure out when their doctor's appointments are, or birthdays, or have a notebook of important things written down, or have them use a cell phone if they're capable of doing that. Use timers, right? So these are going to be the type of memories that you're going to want to find other help for so that they can continue to be as independent as possible. Now let's move on to the long-term memories. So our long-term storage capabilities are really unlimited, but our being able to access it isn't. So within the long-term memory, you have episodic, semantic, and procedural memory. Our episodic memories include all of our unique personal experiences. So they're the ones that we remember about the time and the place of specific events. So you can think of it as kind of our life episodes, the episodes that we acquired throughout our life. So these are going to include memories like where you were when 9/11 happened, or your vacation that you just took to Greece or London or the beach, wherever you go. The first time you rode in a plane, or your first kiss, or the birth of your first child. So all of these memories are very personal, and they're different for each person that experiences it, even if they're experiencing the same thing with another person. And these type of memories are the ones that your loved one will talk about over and over and over if their dementia progresses, because these are the memories that they hold and that they're able to remember for a long period of time. Our semantic memories are made up of information about the world. So it's the knowledge we have accumulated throughout our lives. All right, so maybe it's the reason we say the older, the wiser. So it's how we know states and capitals. It's how we know that the grass is green and the sky is blue. It's how we know, it's knowing how to use scissors. All right, so it's all of the factual type of information that we've learned through our lives, and it's the things that we can then access to help us then know that information for later. Procedural memory. This allows us to perform ordinary tasks without having to think about them. So you can think about things like making a sandwich, tying your shoe, driving a car. All right, so all of these things we do without much thought being put into them because we've done them over and over again. So this procedural recall is kind of like forming a motor habit. The more that you practice doing something, the more habitual it becomes and the easier it is to do. So this is actually the kind of memory that I use the most when I'm working with my dementia patients, because I help them in doing and developing safety skills. So oftentimes when things happen and dementia patients have to learn a new skill, say how to use a walker or how to stand safely from a wheelchair, then because their short-term memory is gone and they're not going to remember me telling them the right things to do, then I have to tap into this procedural memory. I have to have them do the task over and over and over again in the right way so that eventually this procedural recall kicks in and they no longer have to think about what they're doing, and then they're doing it safely. So, caregivers, isn't memory kind of cool? Being able to understand the differences in memory can actually help you in becoming a better caregiver. So if you're caring for a loved one with dementia, I want you to find their strengths and I want you to roll with them. I want you also to remember that you have to compensate for those short-term memory losses, and then you can work with and help to strengthen the ones like the procedural memory, and then roll with their episodic memories, because those are going to be the ones that they talk to you about. So I wanted to tell you all too that I started a Facebook group, and it's called Caregiver Helping Hands. So I'd like you to please consider joining so that we can build a support system together and I can help to answer your questions. There's a link in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll be back again soon to help you continue cracking the code.